Hey guys, welcome back to the show. We're back with another in-depth video, this time with Negative Supply, and we're here with his co-founder, Saxon, who's just moved offices to California. So Negative Supply makes devices to help you digitize and, let's say, complement film photography. So Saxon, tell me, what is Negative Supply like in a little short summary?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me today. I obviously love your show and really appreciate having an opportunity to speak to your audience. Negative Supply is a company that really is built around a need for certain products in the film photography industry. Our first product was a device for much more quickly digitizing your negatives with a digital camera. It was the film carrier Mark I. That particular device made it easy to use a camera to take a photograph of your negatives. And then very quickly with an advance, we'll go to the next frame. So we've kind of continued that through obviously 35, 120, and we also have large format 4x5 and 8x10 products. But we're expanding, so I think this is a great time for a call. Negative Supply has always been a company that appreciates maybe an industry that values high quality products, and so we're here to kind of provide those regardless of the exact need. We've obviously started talking about new products like a light source and some accessories for making your darkroom experience a little bit easier, like our new film drying rack.
Yeah, from for people that haven't seen, like basically you guys have brought in a product that even though everybody I think is like, oh, that's so obvious, was not really in the market, maybe in the quality and the pricing. And we'll go more into detail about pricing and quality later, but like as far as I know, when you guys came into the game, it was basically people were starting to like dislike their Epson scanners. And if you go onto YouTube and you look at scanning Epson, there's like 100 tutorials with over 100,000 views. That means people really need help with that. And there's been more software for inverting your scans, like the Negative Lab Pro, which have been helping make your product, I think, fit perfectly well. And the thing is that, like, I don't think there was a lot. There was the digitizer from lithography, the film toaster, people making their own, like, enlarger, easel, mask thing, cardboard boxes, shoe boxes. But you guys brought something that is not as expensive as the film toaster, that does all the formats, but is huge and expensive. And then is not like the digitizer, which works, but it requires more manual labor. So tell me, what was your main points when you were trying to make the 35, which is the first product you came out with?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I appreciate some of the flatbed scanners that are out there, just like everyone else does. That's how I started scanning film. Granted, the particular one I had was returned within like 2 weeks, just because the workflow wasn't there for me. Within that 2 week time frame, I had actually created a prototype for basically pulling your film across the film plane. And in reality, it was all about workflows. I was working a full-time job. I was traveling every other weekend, and I was still shooting film. I think what happened when I started developing my own film is I got this backlog of things that I hadn't scanned yet, because I had to take each and every roll of film, cut it into individual strips, and then throw it into a flatbed scanner. It would very easily take up an hour to or 30 minutes to an hour to scan a roll of film. If I got good at it, it might be a little faster. But I think when I started looking at it, I said, I'm pretty sure that the scanning part of analog photography is what might be keeping people from jumping into it as quickly. And it might be what's keeping people from shooting so much film. So if you think about it, if every person in the world, let's say, has an hour and a half on the weekends to develop and scan film, they're going to shoot like 1 or 2 rolls of film. They're probably not going to have the time to do more than that. And I said the industry is not going to survive if people aren't actively shooting multiple rolls of film and have an easy way to develop it. Obviously, labs serve a great purpose, but I think people want more. They want the opportunity to really get to know their craft. They spend all of their time using these beautiful mechanical machines, these cameras, and I think they appreciate that almost tactile mechanical experience when it comes to developing too. And so I said, you know what, if we can make it easier to scan film, and I was not the one that came up with digitalizing with a camera by any means. That there were numerous groups out there that did that. But I said, if we can make a product that matches the quality of the cameras that people use on a daily basis, but makes it easy to develop and scan their film at home, I think the film industry will see a pretty big uptick. That's where it started. You know, we thought we would sell a few dozen units and maybe from there kind of slowly grow. But what we saw is I think there was a lot of need in the industry for tools like this. You don't see a lot of manufacturers taking on new projects outside of the upstarts. I'm going to maybe put a big asterisk there. There are a lot of amazing established companies that are continuing to do the great work that they have always done. And then there are a lot of smaller, innovative companies that are creating new products. And I think we just happened to be there at the right time to start tackling the digitizing part.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we did. That's where we are now.
No, yeah, I think like what I've seen, I've been shooting film again since 2009 or 2008. And the thing I've seen is, yeah, there's legacy companies that are still making stuff, like Epson's making scanners, you know, you got Enlarger still and stuff like that. But there's been such a big space of smaller projects. And of course, the market is not that big to create, you know, for Epson to turn around and say, hey, we're going to make a negative holder for 35 millimeter or whatever. Like, I think these little small projects, that's why my news almost every week is Kickstarters and, you know, stuff, related topics that unless you're a big company, it's very hard to make. So I think you guys fit into that. Like the first product you brought in, it was the 35 millimeter Mark 1, which is priced, I'm looking at it now on your website, is at $329. And one of the biggest concerns people have been having is the pricing compared, because like if you go into the market, like 329 could buy you, like you said, like an Epson V600 or a V500. Like, what would you say is the reason maybe for a price? And I know the quality myself, but for people that are watching this for the first time, how would you justify getting a product like this one at that price point, considering that an Epson, and everybody says, every single person I've read online is like, oh, but an Epson can do 120 and 35. So how would you explain or bring your conversation there?
Yeah, well, I think to talk about the price on that particular product, I also have to kind of talk about some of the ideas that our business really holds tight. Mm-hmm. One of those is really doing everything in-house when possible, and building quality products that match the quality of the cameras and other devices that we use. You know, you can spend $329 and buy an alternative solution made of plastic. It's got, you know, rough user interfaces, and it's just not a beautiful product that people want to use on a daily basis. It's not something that inspires them. And I think we're always trying to build products that inspire the users. Mm-hmm. At the same time, though, we build tools. You know, if we take our company and we look at it from the outside, we would say we are a tool company. We're here to build instruments that people can use on a daily basis for digitizing negatives, or in more transparent terms, like create their life's body of work. Like you're talking about taking photographs of people's families, of places they've traveled, of loved ones. I think they also enjoy using like legacy products that allow them to feel inspired when capturing and digitizing their negatives. When you look at what that means for us from a design standpoint, it means doing things what I'm going to call the right way, quote unquote, for different industries or different sectors that may not be, quote unquote, the same right way. But for us, it's CNC machined aluminum, beautiful anodized coatings, and some of the highest end hardware we can possibly find. I think a lot of people have this misconception of what it costs to build products. I think it's maybe sometimes taken out of context. I think a lot of people look at a product and they say, oh, well, you could probably just make that and outsource it and spend a couple $100 on the design work. But that's not really what happens. I think a lot of people discount the fact that I spend 6 months of my time, like almost 4 to 5 hours a day in CAD, like designing these products, making sure that they're perfect, and then working with manufacturers in a way that most people aren't familiar with. A lot of people, they say, I have an idea for a product and I'd like that product to come to life. Let me find a company that can design, build, and manufacture and fulfill that product. That's not a bad way to do it by any means. I think for a lot of off-the-shelf products, a lot of things that are just commodities, that works out okay. And not everybody with ideas is a manufacturing engineer or someone that can design the actual manufacturing steps. But what I did is I said, we want as much control as possible. And when it comes time for us to start employing people, we want to be able to do that in the right way. And so we said, we're not just going to hire a company to design and build our product. We're going to do all of that work ourselves. And so I spent, like I said, like 6 months actually working on how to build this product. Each and every piece is like modeled and fit together perfectly. And then I said, let's find a CNC shop that can do that. And then let's start finding anodizing shops. And then final step, after I've reached my bandwidth for production and AJ's come on board and we've together reached out, let's start hiring people. And that's exactly what we've done. And so when you spend money on these products, you're spending money to buy a legacy tool, a tool that you can use for your entire life, pass down. But you're also spending money to support the film industry in a way that you may not realize. You're not paying negative supply to then go pay, I'm going to call them random employees, but people that aren't connected to the film industry to build something. Yeah. You're paying negative supply for products. Negative supply is paying someone in the film industry to assemble it, a working artist, and you're supporting our future innovation. I think people forget that. They're not only paying for this product. When you buy a product from a company like Negative Supply, you're investing in our future and what other products that we're able to produce.
Not to justify the price point, because that's, I think, not my job in general, but being a user of your film carrier and all these things is, I remember being the first person when I saw your project. I do the news and I don't put my opinions on the news because I think I should be as objective as possible. And I was like, wow, looks really good. And I remember writing you guys like this look and sharing it or wherever I could, apart from the news. But like, I wasn't 100% fan of it, like price point. And the moment that you offered to send me one of the beta units, I remember getting it in the mail, opening the box, and that thing was not even the aluminum it is today. It was 3D printed in some hardcore like material, like the using it. And I had and I'm pointing out of the room to my new or newish to me, Frontier SP2500, which is a wonderful machine that I picked up because it was cheap, and I drove like 10 hours one way and 10 hours the other way to pick it up. And I started using your device, and the moment I used it, I was like, I remember writing you like, Saxon, I really need one of these like myself. And you were still, I think, just finished the Kickstarter, and it was summer. It was like a weird time. And when I got the Rio unit, the one that's in the market now, I was like, wow, this really makes your life easier. I'm not saying that scanner is bad at all. Like, it's a professional tool, but the fact that I can throw in an uncut roll, and I develop all my film, I don't rely on labs. So I just put the roll of film through it and I start shooting, and I'm digitizing with a friend's 5D Mark II. But for my use, which is social media, I'm super happy with the device. I just scan like that, and all my 35 doesn't go to the Frontier anymore. It goes to your device, and the 120 I do there for now, and the 4x5 I still haven't tested because I usually do prints of that. But like, I really like the idea of it being easy and a quality product. Like the fact that you feel that it's not going to break apart in 100 rolls. It doesn't going to feel like it's going to break apart if you drop it. Like anything like that doesn't seem to be a problem. And another thing that I always say to people when we discuss, because everybody they reach to you guys and say you guys are expensive. I get a lot more because I'm not the company. I'm making YouTube videos, or I'm making the news, and I always say like they're also sponsoring or funding more research, and we'll get to that in a bit. But like, you guys haven't stopped building products since the Mark I. What's been the lifespan since Mark I till today? Like, when did you launch the official Kickstarter of the Mark I?
Yeah, well, I'll say this. So our company is a little over a year old now. With the situation in the world, we really weren't able to celebrate like we wanted to. But about a year and 1 month ago, we came out with the Mark I on Kickstarter, and then they started shipping like that summer. Since then, we've obviously started creating accessories for that. We've changed up the design on a few things. So we now have a camera stand, all metal support plate that holds like a anti-static dust brush. And then most recently, we released the 120 scanning option. And that's another one of those scenarios where when you ask about like a time frame or like what it takes to build these products, that product was in development since the 35 millimeter version came out. There were super early prototypes that made it to Mark Sperry over a year ago from Northeast Photographic, and we continued to grab feedback from him around like what makes it work properly. And so when you look at that, it's sometimes hard to connect the dots, but like that little bit of profit, and I say little, I mean like we obviously went above and beyond when we released the metal versions as kind of a surprise to all of the backers. but we did have a little bit of profit that we were able to turn directly into research and development. And so at the time of that very first Kickstarter, we were putting money into the 120 project. And I'll say this without revealing too much. Obviously, the success of our Kickstarter for 120 is now fueling these new products, and you're just starting to see the small results of that. We've now got a bigger facility, what's great about moving here, we're in rural Ventura County, California. Like, what's great about here is the land or the space is a lot less expensive than Center City, Philadelphia. So that's also allowed us to more economically expand in a way that's going to help us continue development, but also get our lead times down. I don't know if you wanted to ask about lead times, but that's been something that's kind of bugged us to begin with.
Yeah, I do know that you design and people like CNC the material and then analyze and then you put it all together, because the 35 at least that I own, you can see there's I'll say it, the hardware that connects it together, the film gate that maybe like goes through the rollers and all that. Like, I know you do that. Like, how long is like the lead time due to maybe minimum orders from your suppliers, and also maybe hand assembling it all together? So what is approximately now? I think you go in batches, but like, what's approximately your lead times?
Yeah, well, we do go in batches, but to be transparent with you, since the launch of the 120 carrier, we really haven't been able to keep up with the number of orders that were coming in. And that's not to say that we're just like swimming in orders. Like, I wouldn't want to say it like that. But when you think a small company goes from, it's not exponential growth, but it is growth, like linear growth. Mm-hmm. We have to scale very quickly. And so when you see like 1 to 2 months of lead time, which is what we've had actually over the pretty much the last year, mm-hmm. It's because it's not that simple for us to simply like add another employee and open a shop. Like, the 2-month lead time is simply due to us needing to expand at a rate to hopefully catch up with the demand. There are some like issues that we end up having with suppliers. There have been a couple situations where, because of the worldwide situation, we've had parts delayed, and we've been very transparent about that in emails. But I mean, I think we're also like very, very fortunate to now be in a good place where we've finalized our manufacturing workflows in a way that makes things much more smooth. And so we've just, for example, ordered another batch of products for Mark 1s, and they are going to arrive right when they're needed versus mm-hmm. a little bit late because of everything else. So yeah, that should give some context to it. Well, I think it's also, and I'll say this like with maybe some caution, I think a lot of companies that manufacture in different ways, so for example, they outsource everything, when they have this influx of new orders, it's very, very like a bump or a very quick rise. It's very easy for them just to write a check and get another batch of fully produced and built products. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually obviously a big advantage in that scenario. But for us, when we get this huge bump, we have to think long term as well. We have to say, do we want to hire someone but not be able to guarantee that they can continue to work for years? Or do we want to just stretch out the lead times a little bit, continue to work with the bandwidth that we have, and kind of adjust that way? So again, we're trying to be as agile as possible, but when you're doing things like, I would say, the old world way, where you try to do everything in-house, it is often challenging to really overcome lead times.
And to change the topic a little bit, Saxon, like, considering the quality of the product, and I'm a happy user and customer, like, how has been the response from people that have received it? Because of course the market, there's a lot of noise always in the film photography in any market, but then the actual customers and their feedback, how has it been throughout this year and a bit that you've been around?
It's been great. We've done a few hands-on demos. Obviously, we were at Photo Plus this last year. And, the first thing people ask is like, how much does it cost? What does it do? And obviously, I would never want to say, oh, our build quality justifies the cost alone. I'd want to say the build quality and functionality and the thought that goes into it justifies the cost. However, when someone picks up our products for the first time, the immediate reaction is, oh my God, this is heavier than I thought. Why is it solid aluminum? And I start explaining that it actually comes from a few different places. One, it costs a lot more money to carve out extra unused material, and so let's just leave it in there. And two, that added weight makes the device more stable when scanning. So it eliminates necessarily the need to like tape it down to your setup.
Yeah, I can say that from my use is like the moment you put it there, you always think like, oh, when I advance, like it's gonna wiggle, and you're using a macro lens, so like you really have to have it very nailed, and it's the hardest part is setting up. And like once it's there, that doesn't move. I haven't seen any issues. You just roll your film, pull it in, pull it out, you know, dust it, whatever, blow it, and it works great. So the weight I think is a great, like you said, it's nice to have it there.
Yeah, too. I think we try to again compare ourselves to like a tool store, and so when you start looking at some of the nicest tools in the entire world, they're built in a way that allows them to last. And so we try to do the same thing. Like I have like some really nice like German made and like Austrian made and American made tools, and I look at these products on a daily basis because I use them to build film carriers, and I'm like, if I'm not building a product that matches this quality, then what's the point? Like there's no point. And so that's again what I try to do on a daily basis.
Yeah. Now going back to like, well, let's go into the new products that you're bringing out, like, because we've been already for a little while talking about what's currently the beginning of the company. So you brought the 35 and the 120, which were both successful Kickstarters, so that's great. The 120 is still not in the market. I'm sure you guys are about to start shipping, or you started shipping, if I'm not wrong, or no?
No, so it's June and July are the delivery date.
Yeah, and I can imagine things are a little slow in general.
They are. Obviously, we have to like finalize design, so we're getting all of the feedback and we're reviewing it. But once we have that in place, like 3 to 4 weeks, we can have machined enclosures. We can have them at our anodizing shop over in Oxnard, California, and back in 2 days. And then from there, like it's just assembly, box, and ship. And we're going from myself and AJ on our first 35 millimeter in my apartment to a facility that has like the right space that we need to lay stuff out, and an extra set of hands, Brian, who we just brought on board.
Mm-hmm. So you announced the light source, which I think when people look at negative supplier, you started the 35, then the Pro riser, or the Pro mount, and then you did the 120. You made the accessories for like the mounted slides and the 4x5 and the whole sprocket shooting with the 35. Then you brought now the light source. And we talked about this on, a private Skype talk like a couple of months ago. And you were like, our most important part is like the CRI is like really high and the material's good. So I saw that you launched yesterday, or announced yesterday, 3 light sources. And there's going to be 3 sizes and 3, I would say, budgets, because you mentioned on one of our conversations that one of the smallest ones is like for the really budget-friendly option. So tell me, what are the products basically? What do you think will be the price point? And I know the price is not out yet, but like a ballpark of like, I don't know, 50, 100, and 150 or something like that.
Yeah, well, so you're right. We released 3 different light sources. When it came down to it, we're now to the point where like when we make a capital investment in a part, so for example, the extruded aluminum enclosures that the high end, our Pro series of lights use, we can very easily scale that to a couple different devices. Obviously, when you're looking at the cost of a light, there's the enclosure, there's the electronics, but then there's the bulbs. And when you're looking at high quality bulbs that provide the right quality of light, like you mentioned, CRI means full spectrum, means that you're getting as close to an equal spread of each channel, all the colors. The size of the light table really influences the cost, because each and every bulb has a cost associated with it. So we said, let's build the best lights we can possibly build. They're incredibly bright. They're about 9.5 times brighter than what you might find on traditional pads. And let's offer it in a 95 CRI for the smaller size, or a 99. And let's offer it in a large size for 8x10 and up shooters in a 99 CRI. But we said one of the things that we want to continue to do, maybe this is from our places, like younger people who are closer to education and the film photography world there, we want to make it as accessible as possible. We want to lower that barrier of entry for people to digitize their negatives. And to do that, we have to economically create a light source that will work with our system. And so we've created an entry-level model, and this particular one is going to cost not $100, not over $100. And it's made to work under our Pro mount. It can work honestly with a lot of different setups. Maybe you start out with just the Mark I, and then you add the Pro mount later. It's flexible. It's for that. But it is made, again, to get people started. It's about 2 to 2.5 times brighter than traditional lights out there. Runs on AC power. It's simple. There's not much to it. And I think it fits in nicely. And so we're trying to use our flexibility in manufacturing to give everyone a choice, to not really box them into just the super high-end equipment, but also offer a high-quality entry-level option.
And now that you bring that out, I think we've mentioned, we've talked about it, but like, will you think about making, like you say, the 35 Mark I is a really very good premium product for digitizing your film. Will there be maybe a simpler version for maybe the entry level, just like the light source? You have like the pro version, and then you have like the budget friendly. Will there be maybe down the road a budget friendly 35, maybe for people that don't need the whole film gate, that don't need maybe such a big size, like, I don't know, something like it?
Yeah, I think so. I think at the end of the day, like, we're looking at every opportunity to empower people to shoot as much film as possible. And to do that, we're also going to have to build tools that fit within people's budgets, while still sticking to some of the values that we've traditionally had. While the Film Carrier Mark I is our flagship product, it's the one that started our company, but it's also the one that people look to when they think of great design from Negative Supply. I think there's definitely room for other options out there. That being said, when I look at the roadmap, I also look at a lot of really exciting tools that aren't out yet.
Yeah.
And I think if we had paused when everybody said build a low-cost film carrier, we wouldn't have a light source out. We wouldn't have been able to release the 120 as quickly. And so we want to get these hero products out. We want to really make sure that the designs are good before we move to working on other versions of other products. A 35 millimeter entry-level option is available. It's the Mark I for now. But maybe there's another option that takes its place down the road. We just don't want to slow down some of the exciting ideas we have.
Yeah.
I
have to say, sorry for interrupting, but like from what we've talked personally, I know that you have a lot of ideas, and I'm one of those that has ideas, but I can't make anything out of them except for share them with people like you. So like, is there anything down the road that you are very excited about sharing soon? Like, what can people see? Maybe not exactly what the device could be, because that would be spoiling it, but like, what's the path you think you'll go slowly?
I'll say this. So I call myself a working photographer. I don't take necessarily the most beautiful pictures. I don't take like amazing portraits. It's not like that. I take photos that obviously fulfill me, but they're actually test beds for future products. And so I might shoot X number of rolls of film and then go develop that film, just like you do it on a daily basis, just like your viewers do on a daily basis. And as I'm developing that film, I am carefully taking notes on what are some of the pain points in development, specifically scanning, workflow, archiving, things like that. And so for us, I think what it always comes back to is, okay, I just developed a roll of film. What wasn't fun? What was a lot more painful than it should have been? Or maybe I just developed color film. Maybe what were some issues? What didn't I like? Maybe around like manual processes that shouldn't have to be manual. And so I do that. Again, I'm a working photographer who takes pictures and is fortunate enough to be able to take pictures for research purposes. I will say, I'll give myself some credit and say I think I take great photos, and I take a lot of travel work, and I have blog posts with that kind of work. But there is another output that I think a lot of people sometimes miss, and that's the fact that I'm taking these photos specifically so that I can improve my craft, both from a photography standpoint and a product design standpoint. I'm always looking for opportunities to improve the experience.
Okay. So, Saxon, anything else you would like to mention before we close the little in-depth chat? Anything that you would like to tell people that maybe are looking into the products or anything like it?
I think the biggest thing is like I want to continue to see small companies like innovate. I know that Negative Supply maybe is now in a position where we have some footing. You know, we're a young company. By no means are we a company that's as established as some of the big names out there. But I think we've also hopefully stretched the community in a way that is influential. Hopefully we've given people a bar maybe to reach for. Maybe there's people that have ideas that haven't put them in place yet. We want to hopefully be an inspiration for that. And so I think I'll leave you with, like, if you're a small innovator, or if you're someone who has a project, a photography project that you haven't quite jumped on, I think now more than ever with like what's going on in the world, like I think everyone slowed down and started to appreciate some of the talents that they have, and I want people to use those. So whether it's a new product, or whether it's a body of work with your photography, or whether it's a YouTube channel, like just try to innovate, put yourself, and at the end of the day, just have fun with it.
Okay. Well, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks, Saxon, for talking with me. If you have any questions, comments, or anything, you can leave a comment below, or you can write Saxon at Negative Supply. They're extremely responsive on social media, which is one of the things I love about these new companies coming out. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.